Georgia lawyers Bob and Irreverent D Talk Law. Listen up for stories about how things really happen in our legal system. Who are these guys? Dwayne Singleton, Irreverent D, is a criminal. Turn page. Defense attorney. Benjamin O Bengtson will personally injure... What? Oh, wait. Is a personal injury attorney in Atlanta. Now, sit back and take a listen as Bob and Irreverent D talk law.
Well, the first thing I'd like to address is when we agreed to do this, I thought there was going to be alcohol involved. But we're just standing in front of
We're standing in front of alcohol.
Which is fine. It'll keep us clear-headed.
Well, we were originally going to...
When we originally talked about this, it was going to be like two guys at a bar, lawyers talking about cases.
Yeah, and then it just turned into this big production, right?
Because we thought that, maybe people would think what we thought was interesting when we're, is interesting. So we'll see.
We'll find out.
But
I'm definitely going to have a glass of scotch here. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm smart enough to have a glass of scotch and still continue, but we'll see how it works out.
Yeah, I was talking to Steve about that earlier. The key thing is not that you know the content or you don't, because it's all right there.
Right.
The key thing is when you open your mouth, are the words there? Right.
And do other people understand the words which you are saying?
No, what I'm saying is there are sometimes there's a fully formed thought in my brain, and I'm fixing to say it, and then there's not the word that's supposed to go at the beginning of it, just not there. It's just not registering. I'm trying to pull the data. No word. Yeah.
Well, let's see if we can find some stuff that people might find interesting.
I think so. Well, let's talk about the news.
All right.
And now, the news.
Let's see here. 0 stars. Courts weigh whether companies invite libel when they're asking for Google reviews. Boring. All right. Let's see.
Unless somebody wants to hear about that later, we'll review it. But
I guess maybe. Yeah. Well, we do have the mailbag.
Yeah.
That will be able to tell us that. Okay. Let's see. Allegations that GOP Republican lawyers served as fake electors in the 2020 election.
Politics. No.
Not bad. Oh, now this is interesting. The Chatham County DA, that's down in Savannah, right?
Right.
Chatham County DA is now saying they're not going to prosecute marijuana cases. Is that good?
Praise the Lord.
Really?
Yes.
I would not have guessed that.
Yes. So this chasing down these marijuana cases wastes so much time and resources for such a basic offense that most places and lots of states have already legalized. So that step is huge. Back in 2019, when they passed the Georgia hemp farming bill, which went into effect, which is it basically legalized.
Legalized?
Well,
you're not saying that marijuana is legal?
No, it's not legal. I
can still get busted for smoking marijuana, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
But it changed the definition of marijuana to hemp unless it contained a certain amount of delta-9 THC.
Okay, that's way beyond me.
So THC
what does that even mean? Delta-9 THC?
THC is the psychoactive part of marijuana, and there's several hundred different varieties of THC.
Does that mean it makes you psycho?
It means that's what makes you feel good when you smoke a little doobie. Okay.
All right.
Now, we don't know if some of these other THCs do anything or not because they've never really been tested. Delta-9 is really the only one that's been tested. And the reason for that is the feds still classify marijuana as a Schedule 1.
Bad. Schedule 1 bad?
Yeah. Fentanyl's a Schedule 4.
Meaning not as
Meaning
bad.
It has medical purposes. It can be used. It's good for you.
Wait, so the feds are still saying that marijuana has no medical purpose?
No medical purpose.
Man, are they out of touch.
And
it's still illegal under federal law to have marijuana?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it has the federal definition is if it has a THC content of delta-9 THC over 0.03 grams per dry weight. So Georgia adopted that federal definition.
Until they changed it.
No, Georgia recently adopted it in 2019, which allows us to have hemp. Before then, all hemp was weed. All weed was hemp. It was all illegal.
So it can be farmed now and things like that.
So now we can farm it if it has a low THC level.
Okay.
Right? A low delta-9 THC. So what happened was we didn't have the ability to test
We who?
law enforcement. Didn't have an ability.
Wait, hang on. They didn't have the ability to prove that it was marijuana because they couldn't test it.
Yes, because the test they had was
love it.
Was what was called a fast blue test.
I mean, not that I'm advocating for people to do anything illegal, but
Right.
it's just kind of funny.
Well, I think
Okay.
a lot of people don't understand where we're at with the law because a lot of people think marijuana is legal now in Georgia.
It's still not legal.
THC,
Yeah.
Delta 9 THC, is still a Schedule 1 narcotic in Georgia.
Meaning really, really bad.
Really, really,
Okay.
really bad.
All right.
Okay, unless it's considered a low THC product,
Okay.
which would mean it had to have a low amount of Delta 9 THC in it.
Okay. Got it.
That's a very dangerous game to get unless you've got some way to test it, or a very dangerous game to play unless you have a way to test it and know what you're dealing with.
Dangerous game to play for like the prosecutors.
The prosecutor or the dude at the convenience store that's selling it.
Oh, right, because he could be a dealer, right?
Right.
Oh man. I
Because
didn't think
right
about
now
that.
you can walk into the convenience store. Did my little thing disappear here that I picked up from the convenience store?
It's in the we hid it in that drawer because we didn't want the cops to come in here
I
in
gotcha.
between when we talked about it before.
So-
and then accuse us of having a bunch of bud around here.
Right now at your
Okay.
local convenience store, you can go in and
get
pick
the-
up a CBD hemp flower.
Now, Irreverent D,
Yes.
that looks a lot like weed.
It is.
Okay.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Who's
Nobody
even-
asked Siri.
who-
Nobody
Oh.
asked Siri at all. A single question.
Was that Siri? Siri. They're listening,
They're always listening. So this is a hemp flower,
right?
which on the back it says CBD, Delta 9, and it's under the legal limit. Supposedly it's been tested.
Well, yeah, but I mean, how different is that than the little thing that I take with me to go through the airport that says less than 2 ounces, right? It just has a label on it, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so you're still seeing some places, some smaller towns and smaller jurisdictions busting people for having THC oils,
Right.
busting people for having CBD products.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with the connection. Please try again in a moment.
Is that your phone?
That's my computer over there talking.
Oh, it's your. All right.
Can I take
Yeah,
a
yeah.
second? I'm
Look,
sorry.
but let's pause. So where were we
so
before
this
she kept
does
interrupting
have-
us?
So this does have some, supposedly, I guess, of the illegal, very illegal, dangerous Delta 9 THC, but it's under
All right.
the
So
legal amount.
excuse the expression,
Okay.
but we're really getting into the weeds right now,
Absolutely.
right?
Literally the weeds.
What do I need to know if I decide? Okay, like not that I do, because frankly, when I if I ever did use it,
Right.
it just kind of freaks me out. It doesn't like have the effect that it's supposed to. But like if I was to go to one of those places and got that, like what do I need to worry about?
Well, if you have this like in your pocket loose
Right.
or rolled up into a joint and you get stopped, more than likely,
Stopped here or like in Umville, Georgia?
well, not necessarily in Fulton County, but
Right.
or now in Chatham County, but if you're in Umville, Bumble, South Georgia,
Right.
you're going to jail,
Really?
most likely.
But I bought that legally at the.
Absolutely.
Not, I didn't buy it, but
But they're going to take this and they're going to put it into a fast blue test. They're going to shake it.
Right.
It's going to turn blue, and they're going to say, "Oh, it's got THC in it.
You're going to jail.
You're going to jail."
Okay.
Now, when we send it off to the crime lab, hopefully, if they send it off to the crime lab,
They still have to prove that it's marijuana, right?
right, the
Okay.
crime lab is going to come back and say, "Hey, it doesn't have enough THC, Delta 9 THC in it." So,
But in the meantime, I'm going to jail.
right,
And then I have to hire a lawyer to get me out. And I have to bail
Absolutely.
out and all that.
yes.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't think that DUI is going to go away. I mean, that weed's going to go away quietly because there's just too much money to be made in counties and municipalities.
Wait.
because-
Hold on.
yeah.
What are you talking about?
If you read through my clients' cases and files, okay,
Okay. Yeah. So tell me about.
most of the cases when you deal with them is going to say, I got to the window and I smelled an odor of burnt marijuana, or I smelled an odor of
Because we
green
all know what
marijuana.
that smells like, anyways. Right.
And that's going to give them a reason to continue to detain you and search your car. even if they look all through the car and they don't find any marijuana anywhere inside the car, the courts are still going to uphold that detention. And when they find that, body in the trunk of where you killed grandma,
Right, or the firearm you weren't supposed to
or
have.
the firearm you weren't supposed to have, or whatever, stolen credit cards, or, whatever you got in there.
The stop is still going to be legal.
Still going to have a reason to get inside. So our argument is, hey, officer, you can't tell the difference in between the smell of a hemp product and marijuana, okay? And if I can get him to say that on the stand during a motion to suppress, I've got a pretty good motion.
So theoretically, you have a person with a dead body in their car, and you're going to get them off on this technicality? Good job, Dwayne.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Don't hate on the defense attorney. The job is to make sure everybody's following within the letter of the law.
Okay.
Okay, officers can't detain you unreasonably and hold you on the side of the road, just because. I can't just pull you over and be like, hey, I want to stop him. He looks shady.
Right.
Right? That's not a good reason for a stop.
Well,
You have to have a law that's being broken.
We had that. We had that happen to one of our clients. They got pulled. Well, there was a legitimate reason. The police officer said that the guy went across 2 lanes of traffic, and then they held him at the Waffle House for a long time.
Right.
And they got the two guys that were in the car got real belligerent with the police, and then they got hauled off to jail for obstruction.
Well,
of justice.
their obstruction of justice was telling the officer they knew their rights,
Right.
in which he said, "Obey my authority."
But
Yeah. So
and
that's-
that also was in Ville, Georgia.
Yeah.
Right.
What the Chatham County though is reacting to is what's happening with juries around the state, which is juries don't want to convict on marijuana cases. So I had a client recently where we went to trial on quite a bit of marijuana, and in the voir dire part where you're picking the jury,
Right.
because of COVID and stuff, they just brought in a small panel of jurors.
Potential jurors.
Okay.
Okay.
And so many of the jurors were saying, I can't convict and I won't convict for marijuana.
Really?
And they were getting kicked out for cause.
And this wasn't like in DeKalb or this was in
No, this
Georgia.
is South Georgia, small town South Georgia. They're like,
Okay.
nope, not going to do it.
Not going to do that.
To the point that the prosecutor is like, hey, can we renegotiate this case and get rid of this felony possession with intent, because they were wanting him to do like 20 years in prison. And
Good Lord.
yeah, I'm like, and that's the position that we're taking as attorneys, is that I can't send somebody to prison for something that will probably be legal before they get out.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, that's
You think Georgia's going that way?
kicking and screaming.
Yeah.
But I mean, as more and more people want to see it legalized, it'll happen. Hopefully, I just think way too many people are incarcerated on something that, is a personal choice. If I want to have a beer at the end of the day, or if I want to, smoke weed. Now, I don't want to see you hurting anybody or harming anybody. That's a whole different story.
Well, yeah, but you know what I find annoying? Like, this is a corollary, right? I'm walking along the street in public, and some person
Right.
is just, like, it's 10 o'clock in the morning,
Right.
and they're, like, smoking some big something. I don't know what they're smoking because all I do is smell it. It smells like a skunk. It's terrible. That's super annoying. You know what else
It's probably legal hemp.
It probably is legal hemp.
Probably
That's
100% legal hemp.
Oh, you know what else is really annoying?
What's that?
When your neighbor, like, leaves their trash can down at the curb all week, and they don't bring it back up.
Now, sometimes I don't get it up until I get home at 7 or 8 at night.
All right, you know what else is annoying?
What's that?
When your coworker, who constantly brings fish to work.
Oh, God, that's the worst.
That is
Especially
awful.
a bad small office space, and now everybody
And then
smells like
you
fish.
really can't say anything about it. What are you going to do? You're going to say you can't have fish, and then your
I
your
disagree
employee
with
is
your
this-
dietary choices.
right. Your
Yeah.
employee's like, what? You don't want me to be healthy?
Yeah, then we get canceled. That's not good.
Right, right. And- Or you know what else is annoying? When you have like a parent in your daughter's team that is always on the sideline, like yelling and screaming and being like super obnoxious, and you really can't say anything to them.
Oh, what do you do?
Well,
I mean, what
there's
can you possibly do?
Listen, there is a thing. This is our sponsor today, is myownKaren.com.
What?
Yep. With
Whoa,
my
whoa,
own
whoa, 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 what?
hang on. With
myownKaren.com.
Here's their service. With
Okay.
myownKaren.com, you can send a custom recorded, super intense Karen message to let your neighbor know that his trash can must be brought up from the street immediately.
Yes.
And that the coworker has very specific things that they can bring to the office and not.
Not on
and
you.
you
Wash
don't
your
have.
hands of
That's
it.
right. You don't have to do it yourself.
Right.
The Karen will deliver the message for you. Their Karen actresses have been trained to have the most abrasive and confrontational
And the
inflection.
haircut. They need the Karen
But right,
haircut.
they need a Karen haircut. I haven't read through this whole thing, so I'm assuming that must be in like their gold or platinum
You can probably
package.
hear it in her voice.
Right. Yeah. We do.
I want to
next
see the
time-
manager.
Right. Next time that we have them as a sponsor, we need to have like a cut so we can play it. So, anyways, if you're having not just that, but if you're having trouble putting your message into words,
Right.
their premium double platinum level subscription comes with a ghostwriter who will write your message for you,
Yes.
and then the Karen will call live and berate them for you. So if you
Can
need
you
that
keep
service,
the recording? Do they keep it for
There-
you so you can have it as a
you have to go to their
memento?
website. Yeah, you have to go to their website. They have like different membership levels. I think there's pre-recorded ones, but
Well, thank you for sponsoring us, guys. That's
Right.
fantastic.
so
what a
if
great
you have that-
service.
what a great service! If you have that, go to myownKaren.com. MyownKaren.com.
myownKaren.com.
Well, that's interesting. We're back to the news.
All right. What do we got?
Oh, I don't know. What do you have in your pile?
I don't know. Let's see. Fulton Daily, what do we got? Trump FBI searches his Mar-a-Lago estate. You wanna
Boring.
talk-
No.
All right.
about
Let's
that.
see. Pro-Trump lawyer Lynn fails in bid to disbar former
That guy.
Yes.
Lynn Wood. You know he's the guy who represented that guy in the Olympic City bombing cases. Richard Jewell.
Oh no, I did not
back
know
in the
he
day, but
represented-
I'm not sure. I'm not interested in talking
Poor
to
Richard
talking
Jewell.
about him.
He
here.
really got railroaded.
Yeah, he
there for a
died,
second.
right? Yeah.
You know, he was policing down around like Woodbury right when I first started.
Really?
After all this, like
After
he
all this,
found a little small town to like go to and
to be obscure. And,
just
yeah.
escape. But super nice guy, actually.
Was he?
Yeah,
Yeah. You met him?
yeah, back in the
Oh,
day.
wow.
All right,
Yeah.
what else we got? New federal rules could upend states' effort to count rideshare drivers as contractors. Now that could be interesting on a lawsuit basis. That's kind of in your neighborhood there.
Wait, so the feds are saying that, they're going to set up a law that says that.
Now, Georgia
rideshare-
and Alabama
Okay.
are among the latest states to weigh in on the debate over how to classify
Okay.
gig
Yeah, I got it
workers
now.
by enacting laws that basically Uber and Lyft drivers are independent contractors and not employees.
Okay, I got it. So this actually really is interesting. Back, it must have been 4 or 5 years ago. You know, we've had rideshare companies here
Right.
in Georgia for probably 10, 15 years.
Yes.
But about 5 years ago, in California, there was like a lawsuit from a bunch of the rideshare drivers that sued the parent company, saying, "Look, we're not getting paid minimum wage."
Okay.
And that company said, "Folks, you guys aren't employees. You're not entitled to win a minimum wage."
So, well, what's the difference? Because this gets me sometime in between like an employee and an independent contractor.
Okay. So, first of all, if you're an employee of the employer, your employer can be responsible for the stuff that you do that's bad.
Okay.
So, here, perfect example. I've got a client right now who was rear-ended in a car wreck, and the person who rear-ended them was on the job working for a big company when it happened.
Okay.
And so when we're looking at the different places that can provide payment for my client's damages, we look at the person who did it, because that person's the one who's responsible to you. But also, you can look at their employer and say, well, the employer, you're responsible for the negligent stuff or the bad stuff that your employee does.
So why doesn't every employer just say, okay, I'm going to go back and make everybody an independent contractor. Done. It's your responsibility to get your own insurance. And just, that'd be the smart thing to do.
How many times? That happens all the time.
Right.
Especially with smaller employers. or smaller businesses that don't have employees, they have 1099s. So how many times have you talked to a person on the phone? They say,
I'm 1099.
Well, I'm a 1099, right? And that means that they don't take taxes out of your paycheck. You're responsible to handle your own taxes if you're a quote 1099 employee or 1099 person. And it also means the employer is not responsible for whatever they do that's wrong. The problem is, well, there's three problems with that. One is you can only argue what reality dictates.
Okay.
Right? So if I say, okay, Dwayne, I want you to do some work for me, not as an employee. You're going to be a 1099. I want you to show up at 8 o'clock in the morning, and
right.
You stay here until 6 o'clock at night. I'm going to give you a computer. I'm going to tell you what to do. You're going to do the thing, and then you're going to come back to me and say, I got this thing done. What do I do next? And I say, okay, you do this and you do this. Like, it doesn't matter if I call you a 1099. I call you an independent contractor. I'm your boss.
So somebody can be on a 1099. I call them a 1099, but they're really an employee.
Right,
And
because
the
you're
employer
telling them
still
what to
has-
do all the time.
So because of what I'm doing as an employer, then I am then responsible for their actions?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so we have, you remember Orby?
Yes.
Right? So we have that scenario right now where there was a person who worked for, let's just say they were a delivery service,
Yes.
a food delivery service, and they showed up to Orby's house, and
This is all public record.
this is all in it's all in the public. I'm not
in
I'm
the
not
court
disclosing
registry,
secrets.
and we've got
Right.
permission from Orby. So,
That's right.
Yeah.
So just to save time, there was yada yada yada. 3 weeks later, the lady who was working for the food delivery service is living in Orby's house
And won't leave.
with her 3 children.
I hate
That
telling
Orby's-
this story because I feel like
It's so
some
terrible.
criminal out there is going to be like, that's
It's
it. I'm
gonna say,
delivering
"What a great-"
groceries. And as I go inside the house, I'm not going to leave.
I'm not going to leave. And she didn't.
What a terrible situation. How
But-
terrifying.
It was awful because it got worse.
Right.
Right, because she inevitably he said something that she felt like was creepy.
Like, get out of my house.
Or
you can't stay here.
I don't know. We don't really know what was said.
And she was scared.
And she was scared. That's right. And so she called the police.
Right.
And said, this man is making blah 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 blah, right?
You
and
can't
the
make
police,
this stuff up.
No,
This
you
is
can't
the
make this
craziest
stuff.
story.
It is absolutely the craziest story. So then the police ejected our guy from his own house.
Right.
Right. And he had to hand over the keys, and he had to keep paying rent and utilities on this house where this woman and her 3 children were staying.
And then he had to hire an attorney to go fight it.
That's right. Yeah, because she had gotten a temporary restraining order against him in his own house.
Right.
So there were a whole bunch of different things that went into that would take us probably 3 episodes to.
So is
to
this
parse
something
out.
that people should be concerned with if they've got like a Airbnb and they got a back bedroom they're renting out? Is this something that people should really consider when they're thinking about these types of things? Like, can somebody get inside your house and you can't get them out?
Yeah, that's beyond me.
Okay.
It is an interesting legal question. I haven't even thought about it. We'll have to catch up on it on the next episode. But what you're saying is, okay, let's just say that I rent
A room for 3 weeks.
Okay, so that's more long
Or
term.
rent a room for
A weekend.
5 days.
For
3
a weekend,
days.
using Airbnb.
Right.
Right. If I decide I don't want to leave that room, do you have to go through eviction proceedings to get rid of me?
Right.
I don't know. What happens? I don't know. What
We need to
happens
look
in
this
a hotel?
I think a hotel, because it's night to night, right?
Right.
They can just call the police and get you out. But I think some situations,
All right. So we're going to research
if
that.
you've
But I
made
think
it your residence,
yeah, I
they
think
may
what
have
it
a
comes.
problem.
I think what it comes down to is when you're staying in a hotel, they're giving you a license to stay or something like that. You're just not creating a tenancy, right? Anyway, so back to the original news item. The issue is, well, is this lady an employee of the food service delivery, or is she an independent contractor? Because
So can this food service delivery place be held liable for their employees'
Exactly right.
action
Exactly right.
if they're employee versus an independent contractor.
So our position is, well, yeah, because you're telling her where to go, you're telling her what to do, you're giving her the things to do them. You
can't do it without the technology that they provide.
Exactly right. And of course, and apparently the feds have our back on that, because they're trying to overturn, or they're telling states that, hey, look, if you're going to enact a very specific statute like Georgia is talking about doing, that says, no, these people are absolutely independent contractors, that we may have something to say about it. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
We'll need to follow up on that. I think that has a lot of possibilities there.
It does. Well, that's it for the news. So the next thing that we're going to do, we've covered the news, is we're going to talk about our section called Can I Sue for That?
Can I sue for that?
So the question is, I had this question come up this week. I had a client, a potential client, that called me and said, listen, I had a medical issue come up at work. I brought a medical excuse back to work. I gave it to my supervisor. The medical issue was somewhat embarrassing in nature, that I didn't want, that nobody would really want disclosed to other people. And sure enough,
They got canned.
no, worse. The supervisor distributed it to all, the whole team, and they
told everybody.
Told everybody, and they're sitting in the break room yakking about
Dwayne
it.
can't come to work today because he's got gonorrhea. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
fantastic.
That wasn't the medical issue.
No, I'm just saying. I was using
Right,
yeah.
you're using an example, but
That would be horrible. It's a
Yeah, it would be
nightmare.
awful.
Right.
Right? I
And
can
even if
think
it's high blood pressure or
anything
some
like
other
that.
issue, I don't want everybody to
I
know
don't
my
want-
business.
when they're not supposed to. And the question is, well,
So
can
doesn't
you
HIPAA protect them?
Not really.
Ah.
The HIPAA thing. But first of all, I can tell you, with HIPAA violations, we always talk about it.
So what is
this
HIPAA for those following along at home?
So it's the Health Information Protection something Act.
Okay.
Right. It's a lot of people say HIPPA, but it's HIPAA, and I can never remember what the third A stands for. But the third letter
Supposed to
stands for.
protect your health information.
It's supposed to tell medical providers, you don't provide this medical information to other people without my permission.
For
Right?
medical providers.
To medical providers.
Okay.
So
There's really just addressing them.
right, and there's a big question as to whether you even have the right to sue a medical provider if they violate it.
Because sometimes in like a DUI case where I have a
Okay,
client
so this comes up. All right.
who goes to the hospital and is not in custody yet, and the police will take him there because they're having other medical issues, maybe a wreck or something like that, and the police go and ask the nurse just to draw the blood, and they don't have a HIPAA release, and the hospital...
Wait, they do that?
They can do it, but there's a
Okay.
certain procedure they have to follow to do it. A lot of times they don't follow that procedure, and they're just like, hey, give me some of that blood. And that's
No
a
way.
problem, right?
That's where you get it kicked out, right?
That's where we
Okay.
have an
All
issue
right.
with the blood test.
So so this guy's question is, well, can I sue my supervisor for that? And
Right.
So what's the answer? I had to think about it for a couple minutes, but tell me what your thoughts were before I divulge mine.
I mean, he obviously didn't give his employer the permission to distribute this information, and if it's caused him any kind of... I don't know the answer to this question.
I think
You've caught me on the spot here.
The only thing I think
This is where I have to admit I don't know everything.
it's a privacy. It's a Georgia privacy law violation.
Okay.
Not a criminal violation. Well, I guess maybe it could be, but really it's a tort in Georgia. It's an invasion of privacy tort. If you disclose private information publicly to somebody else, so
But is it still private after I give it to my employer and say, hey, this is...
no? Because your employer required you to give them that.
Gotcha.
Right. I mean, it's not like you could come back and not have a job experience.
So would you be
work
better off
experience.
just to tell the employer, I'm not going to... I
Well,
was
I mean,
sick,
then
I'm not going to give it to you?
Then you get canned, right? Because the statement or
Well, we've had some judges around the state go, hey, I want to see if you really tested positive for COVID or not if we're going to call this trial off.
really
Is
for
that an
jury
issue?
trial.
Yeah.
That's all. We'll have to touch that in episode 4. I don't know. I
Could
haven't
be an
even-
issue, maybe.
But okay, so the answer is, well, yeah, you can sue your supervisor for an invasion of privacy or a public disclosure of private information. The question is, well, what are your damages?
Right. What?
So the moral of the story is, and we'll talk about this in future episodes, if you have a piece of paper and you have a crayon and you have $300, you can pretty much sue anybody for whatever you want.
But we need damages, right? There has to be some harm that happened. You didn't get a promotion.
All right.
You got fired over it. Now everybody treats you bad. You're going to get invited to parties.
With privacy, think about this, right? Like, one of the classic invasion of privacy type of torts is the celebrity that's, sunbathing in their backyard at the pool, and the paparazzi come and take a picture, and then they disclose it on the Daily News, Daily Star, Daily Chronograph, or whatever it is, right? That's your classic invasion of privacy type of claim. You don't have to have specific damages. You don't have to show that you had some kind of loss in order to recover. You can still recover just like you could if there's somebody trespassed on your property. You can recover losses even if you don't show that there's some kind of.
So it's still going to be a jury
loss.
question. The jury gets to decide what those damages were.
What those damages are. That's right. All right, last one. This is mailbag questions.
It's time to dip into the mailbag.
This is really interesting. So our listener, Jim, said, I got sued by some company who says they're represented by a credit card company, or they are going at, I guess they're going after for credit card debt.
And we've changed Jim's name to protect Jim.
Yeah, it's not really Jim. Right. It's not really Jim. Yeah. What do I do? I just got served with this lawsuit, he says. So, what's your advice to Jim?
First of all, anytime you get served with a lawsuit, the main thing is don't ignore it. Do not.
Oh, you should. No, don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it.
Don't throw it in a drawer. Don't just stuff it somewhere.
Right.
Because in certain situations, if you have insurance that could cover it, or an insurance policy out there that covers it, and you don't disclose it to them, then they might withdraw coverage and say, hey, we're not going to protect you. And also, you run the risk of getting a default judgment.
Default
means that you didn't respond, you didn't say nothing was filed, no hearing, no nothing. Other side submits an order, judge signs it, and
they're garnishing your wages.
Boom, they get what they asked for.
So that's the other part of that. If you have a piece of paper and a crayon and $300, you can sue somebody.
Right.
Also, if you have a piece of paper and you have a crayon, you can defend yourself.
True.
All you got to do is say denied and deliver to the clerk. You'll probably end up having to work something out with the credit card company's lawyer.
But it's a lot better than just getting
that's right.
garnishment in your bank account disappearing.
That's right. All
and
of
you
a
have
sudden
no
your
idea
money's
what happened.
gone.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for the news and legal advice. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next time when Bob and Irreverent D talk law.